On the line from Cairo now, Heba Morayev, a Libya specialist for Human Rights Watch. Thanks for your time, Heba. Human Rights Watch has actually been, if I'm not mistaken, where we've got a lot of our death toll numbers from. What's your latest death toll number?
Well, unfortunately, our latest death toll number is from last night. It was 233. I think that's a conservative estimate, but we can only confirm death tolls when we speak directly to hospital staff that are credible and that we trust. And we just haven't been able to get hold of anybody in Tripoli today, and I think that's where we're going to see a very, very high death toll from yesterday and today.
Yeah, you make the point of not being able to get in touch with anyone in Tripoli. It seems like all phones have been cut. Phone and wireless networks have very much been cut now. So, I mean, you're effectively cut off from Libya at the moment.
Yes, and this is really a horrific situation from a human rights perspective. The last phone call I was able to make to Tripoli was 2 hours ago, and this is precisely the kind of context which provides the cover for massacres to occur. I think it's important to remember that it's the same government, Gaddafi's regime, that in 1996 killed 1,200 prisoners on one day, on June 29th. And here we are today in 2011, when you think things like this should never be possible, facing another potential human rights catastrophe.
So it broadly doesn't surprise you, the level of force that's been used over the last few days?
Well, it surprised us in the sense that over the last 5 years, as Libya opened up and started to talk about reform, and Saif al-Islam's profile within the country seemed to be rising, and Gaddafi seniors' decision-making in terms of security crackdowns had seemed to be a thing of the past. I think what these last few days have shown is that the real Libya hadn't really changed. The power of the security forces, the fact that there seem to be no limits to how far they're willing to go to quell any political opposition.
But is it just,
despite the rising international criticism?
Sorry, Heba, but is it just that this is all a regime like the Gaddafi regime knows? This is what they've always used to keep their population under control, if I can term it like that, so it's actually no surprise that it continues to be this way.
Well, the surprise is that this is still possible in this day and age, and I say this because I've been working on Libya. I mean, my organization has been since 2005, and we'd even got to the point where in December 2007, we were able to go and have the first press conference by a human rights organization in the country. We were able to meet senior security officials and have discussions with them about the arbitrary detention of prisoners. There was a very small but independent, growing Libyan independent journalists who were writing online. There was a small space for freedom of expression that had grown. So we were sort of under the impression that the more reform-minded elements in the Libyan government had managed to direct political decision-making about the basic freedoms. Obviously, the red lines of you don't criticize Gaddafi, you don't address national unity, the red lines that Saif spoke about again last night, remained the serious limits, and there were no political parties, no freedom of association. So I'm not saying that overall the situation was acceptable by any means, but it had improved somewhat. And so it's a surprise, in a sense, to see the country going back 15 years to the kind of brutality that we thought was a thing of the past, and one would think should not be possible in this day and age.
Yeah, but just recap for anyone who's just joining us now what you know at the latest. You said that your latest death toll is from last night, and you can't get any further updates at the moment, but still bring us up to date with that.
So our latest death toll from last night confirmed was 233. That excludes the death toll in Tripoli overnight. I think it's significant that Qurina, a newspaper associated with Al-Ghad, with Saif al-Islam's media corporation, has already put the death toll in Tripoli at over 60, and we're likely to see that death toll to rise significantly throughout the day today, because from some of the eyewitnesses that we spoke to, there are bodies in some of the streets where people are unable to approach them and even, carry them to hospitals. So I doubt that even hospital staff at this point will know what the overall death toll will be.
Heba Morayev from Human Rights Watch is on the line from Cairo. Thanks for that. The pictures you're looking at now, the latest ones we've gotten through from Benghazi, the second city in Libya, really where the protest movement had its roots, if you like. It certainly was at its peak in Benghazi, even though, as we were just saying with Heba, we've been focusing a bit more on Tripoli in the last 5 or 6 hours, let's say. These pictures show that during the day in Benghazi, it's still very much been a hot spot injured people being carried away there. You saw some previous shots of smoke in the air as well, black smoke in the air from fires. It's now, what is it, 7:40 in the evening in Libya. So these pictures came through a little bit earlier in the day during daylight hours. But they tell the picture, don't they, Salman Sheikh? They tell you that this is still very much alive, no matter what the military seems to be throwing at the people.
Absolutely. And of course, we were hearing that Benghazi had been, had fallen to the protesters. If these pictures are fairly recent, it shows the ongoing battles which have taken place through the course of the day.
Let me just tell you something I'm seeing from Libyan state television, apparently, that Muammar Gaddafi's son, Saif al-Islam, who we saw give that interesting speech overnight, this is Libyan state TV saying this, is forming a committee to investigate incidents taking place in the country. Repeat that, Libyan state television saying that Muammar Gaddafi's son is forming a committee to investigate incidents taking place in the country. Now that's actually, when I read it like that, I see it's actually quite a bland, broad statement. It could mean anything. However, are we starting to see the same things here? The concessions, the bit by bit, I make a little concession every now and then and see if it appeases anyone. Would that be a tack the Libyans would take, do you think?
It is an attempt at appeasement. I think it shows sort of the unpredictability of the regime now that they've come back with something like this. As you said, it's a wide definition. They may well be looking at abuses committed by the protesters or whatever. But if it is a look at some of the killing of innocent protesters themselves, then I think it's more an attempt to try to...
And that's the thing. Once people start dying, once people are killed, innocent people are killed, appeasement goes out the window, doesn't it? We saw that.
I think rule number one, if you want to rule and have legitimacy, you don't start attacking your own people.
OK, Salman, thank you for that. Let's take a look at developments as we come to about 20 minutes to the top of the hour, just some of the developments that we've seen over the last few hours. Pictures you're seeing from Benghazi. However, in Tripoli, there were reports of live ammunition being fired on protesters and fighter jets apparently being used to attack the protesters as well. Those are reports we've had from Tripoli. And on the international front, William Hague, the British Foreign Minister, saying he had information the Libyan leader had fled the country, was on his way to Venezuela. The Venezuelans said no, absolutely not the case. But William Hague joining other EU foreign ministers in Brussels in condemning what is going on in Libya at the moment. And US State Department as well, let's tell you about this, ordered all embassy staff and family members and non-emergency personnel to evacuate Libya. And see the latest comments then from Britain's Foreign Minister William Hague.
You asked me earlier on about whether Colonel Gaddafi is in Venezuela. I have no information that says he is, although I've seen some information that suggests he is on his way there at the moment.
Now, one of the other developments, and it was actually quite a bizarre one we heard about, was Libyan jets leaving the country, apparently quite randomly, and then landing in Malta. Hopefully we can bring up some of the pictures in just a moment of the planes which had landed in Malta. Certainly on the line is Carl Stanio Navarra, who is in the capital of Valletta. Talk us through what you know in this quite bizarre development, Carl.